writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. So before we move to the other things, first of all, a couple of comments. One is last week the mayor signed the smart parking legislation. So I want to make a point of thanking everyone who has helped bring that to fruition. The executive director, Alicorn, her staff, legal counsel over here, Ms. Costonis, with her yeoman effort in drafting the contract, and then finally, and of course, my fellow commissioners. So thank you very, very much. We all serve to make the city better, and hopefully we all are hopeful for a step in the right direction. The next thing is we all want to express our answer to prayers that our former Commissioner Betsy Williams is on the road to recovery. She was unfortunately hit in a crosswalk several weeks ago on James Robertson Parkway, and it was a little touch and go there, but we understand she's on the road to recovery, and we are very grateful for everyone's prayers, considerations, thoughts, staying in touch. She knows she has lots and lots of friends. And with that said, one of the items on our agenda later after other business is to get an update about Vision Zero in Nashville, because this is the exact thing that the goal of Vision Zero is designed to prevent. So with that being said, we'll move to approval of today's agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's been approved. Next item, approval of the minutes of the October 10th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye. Those
have been approved. Approval of the consent agenda. There are no items on the consent agenda today. There's no items under regular agenda. The next item is NDOT update to commissioners on the potential 3rd Avenue bicycle lane alternatives. So staff, if y'all will step forward, please. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Brad Freeze. I'm the Chief Engineer of the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure. And here today I have with me Anna Dearman. She is our Bikeway Program Manager, and Marty Sewell, who's over our planning office within the Nashville DOT. So they're going to provide an update with regard to this 3rd Avenue Bikeway. In addition, a little bit on the Connect Downtown study that we are currently in the midst of. So I'll turn it back over to Marty.
Good afternoon. I'm going to try to briefly go through a quick overview of where we are on Connect Downtown and bring that into the context of 3rd Avenue and the bike lane project. But just as and again, I'll be brief, and so don't hesitate to ask questions at the end. I'm going to try to get as much as I can into here. But the Connect Downtown study, of course, was examining the needs of our downtown streets and understanding the needs that they have to serve and trying to figure out the best way to fit all of the different puzzle pieces together, with the idea that we have to address our traffic congestion in downtown and find ways to better manage it through improvements to traffic operations, our curbside access, pedestrian bike safety, and all of this while supporting residents and businesses, with the idea at the end to have an ambitious plan that's realistic, that we can fund programs and projects that can help all of downtown's mobility needs. go to he's already ahead of me. We've identified 8 specific key areas of focus through our public engagement, as well as through looking through all of the detailed research that's been prepared up to this point. All of them are important, but 1 through 3 in particular are important for this conversation today. And I'll try to focus on those moving forward here. But before, just to the next slide there. Wanted to punch home the engagement that we've done so far. Many events. Everything is not listed here on the page here, but we've had an opportunity to work with various stakeholders throughout the downtown area, with staff and with various agencies also that are our partners in this project, which include TDOT, the Nashville Downtown Partnership, and WeGo Public Transit. So one other thing to point out too, and I've got my prop here, but the State of Downtown Mobility Report is on the website now for Connect Downtown, which is connectdowntown.nashville.gov. And that report will give you an overview of what we've done to this point, as well as setting up the process for how we'll be moving forward. Next slide, just specific to the 3rd Avenue Bikeway. Wanting to present this in the context of one of the major objectives, which was on the list of the focus areas earlier, and that is ensuring that we have great transit priority and connectivity. And the way we're looking at that in particular is calling it transit priority corridors. So as we're looking at 3rd Avenue and other streets and all of the streets in downtown, one of the major objectives is to try to make as fast of a connection as possible between the proposed transit center that is going to be in Sobro area near the 4th and 5th intersection with Lafayette and the existing Music City Central. That particular area is a huge stumbling block to the reliability of our existing transit networks. What we've been doing is looking at those corridors first with the idea of looking at what is the best transit connection. And then from there, being able to go to look and see where the best bicycle and pedestrian and other connections of modes that need to happen. Again, the critical link is between the 2 transit centers. If we were to look at transit priority corridors in this area, things we would look for potentially would be a transit-only lane, better access for ticketing and that sort of thing. Just the quality overall would be improved, as well as the frequency. So those are the things associated with the corridor. But again, the intent would be to move the transit vehicles between those 2 transit centers as quickly as possible, and with as few impacts as possible. And as we look at that, if you go to the next slide, on the right there, you see the downtown street map with all of the different transit options on it. As you can see, there are a lot there. And if you go ahead and take it to the next slide, Jason, gives you a examination of 12, or a list of 12 different ones that we're examining alignments. This isn't the only items on the list, but the point here is to make you understand and to make everyone here understand where we are in the process of looking at a bike lane project like 3rd Avenue. We're still evaluating all of the different other modes that are possible on 3rd, as well as other streets in downtown. So with that in mind, we are at a point where we think it's best to hold back on making a decision about this 3rd Avenue project at this time until we've had a chance to fully evaluate the remainder of these other alternatives and look at the other modes and see how they fall into line as well. All of this with the intent of building networks. The idea of having a connected bikeway network. Right now we have a patchwork. The intent for this plan would be to end with a system we can move toward that is connected and reliable, as well as our transit connectivity. And so with that, I'll just close there and just say that one of the things that you can find on the Connect Downtown website, again, that's connectdowntown.nashville.gov, is the latest survey opportunity, to provide input, and that's a build your own scenario survey. So it's a tool, a game that you can play with the $12 and assign it to the strategies that you think are most important. So I would encourage everyone to help us get to as big a number as possible on that survey so that we can know that we've covered a lot of ground. But with that being said, I'll turn it back over to Brad.
Thank you. So, Commissioners, do you have any specific questions? Just to reiterate what Marty said, we are requesting to indefinitely hold decision on this until we complete our our Connect Downtown study. We are actively looking at the different scenarios right now. and we can answer any questions that you may have.
Before we do questions, welcome, new commissioner. Is it Meshach Adams? Well, welcome, and we look forward to working with you, and welcome to the commission. Thank you. Any commissioners' comments, questions for staff? Yes, council member.
Thank you, Chair. And I may have missed it right at the start, but did you update us on the timeline? I know you had been saying March and then first quarter of next year. Do you have a more precise idea?
Go ahead.
The intent would be of complete in springtime. We have stretched a little bit here in this part of the year, the end of this calendar year, in part to make way for the East Bank Vision Plan to make its way through the process that it needed to get through for approval. And of course, that then allows us to better align our networks with that plan as well as we work in downtown. But in the springtime is when we intend to have the final product. We'll have decision-making information before that, but the intent is the entire project to be completed in the spring.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think what you'll find from the council side as we get to the end of this term with a whole lot of things kind of deferred and delayed and, waiting on studies and, that backlog. I think, and I appreciate that there may be some decisions before springtime and you want to leave that open, but, March, April, May, like that I would encourage you all as you work along the extent to which you can be more definitive about when you're expecting whether that report or some subset of the report as it relates to the bikeway network or transit priority corridors is going to be really helpful because to your point earlier about kind of disparate pieces, I know my colleague Councilman O'Connell will be concerned and hoping that whatever our north-south bikeway that we choose among all those many options that you shared, that connects with the investments that we've already made in Germantown, and that connects with our east-west across the river Woodland that's already funded and so forth. So I would just, encourage you all to proceed as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioners, we do anticipate being back before to actually share another update on this and check in and give you some more detail.
Could you refresh our memories on the Connect Downtown study that's going on now when you'll be coming back with information on that? This seems like I remember it's spring as well.
Spring is what we're targeting for completion, but I would say, I don't want to speak out of turn for Marty here, but I would say we would likely have some more things to share for Connect Downtown prior to the finalization of the study itself.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Okay. Fine.
I apologize, Chair, just one more question.
Yes.
Capital spending plan. It was supposed to be the fall capital spending plan. As we look at, as I understand it, 3rd Avenue bikeways or whatever north-south spine, that is funded, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Woodland Street or whatever east-west, that is funded, correct?
That is correct.
Is there anything that you all have identified in your study at this juncture, just given our cycle of funding? So again, talking about timing, that you feel like you need to go ahead and decide on so that we get it in the appropriate funding cycle to build the network that we need and we don't have to lag a whole nother year? Thank you.
The transit priority corridor is one of the first decisions we must make, and I feel very confident that we would know that toward the end of the year, although we are at the end of the year, but in January, I think we would have made that determination.
And Councilmember, we have actually reserved some funding for implementation as part of this as well. So we haven't waited for that. So we have reserved some funding just to support specifically implementation items that come out of this plan.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. staff will look forward to more information soon. Okay, the next item on our agenda is to review and to recommend to council the proposed amendments to the sidewalk vending ordinance. That was a deferred item from the last meeting. Mr. Odom, you have a presentation to
Yes,
make.
I do. It's really bright in here. I don't know what happened to the lights, but for those in the room, you may not be able to see this presentation, but it is on the monitors for the commissioners. Next slide. All right, so back in March of this year, MMPD, they had an item on your agenda to talk about vending, sidewalk vending in downtown Nashville. They had concerns for pedestrians and also just challenges with enforcing regulations that were on the books. There was an issue with, multiple maps and just requests for partner agency support, and just there were even conflicts between the regulation and code section ordinance regarding sidewalk vending. The picture on the right was just one of the pictures that MMPD provided. I added some additional arrows that they didn't have, but there's just several, multiple violations just in one picture, and this was just the challenge that they brought to the commission. Next slide. This was some of the bullet points, and I may have added one in here somewhere, but first one, what regulations or policies are in a place to remove stands that are in violation or hazardous to public safety that could potentially explode in a crowd, when where to remove stands and who is responsible for them being moved, what must be done so that the cost of continued violation becomes greater than the cost of compliance with health and safety regulations. How can a multi-agency response be coordinated in a consistent way to help ensure the health and safety of consumers in our tourist district? And finally, what agencies are best suited to address the array of issues related to street vending? Next slide. These are just some snapshots that I've seen before. There's more. I did not include some additional ones. Can you go back to that slide just real quick? But you can see on the far left, and I will say not every vendor is, in gross violation of regulations, but just the ones that are, that's where the enforcement need comes into play. But there's a lot of samples here that you can see. Next slide. We had an initial meeting in Nashville back in April, where we met with vendors and other business owners. We formed the Sidewalk Advisory Committee, and we met multiple times while we were also having updates to the commission this summer. I will say the last meeting we had, 8/18, was addressing concerns with the ordinance that was presented to the commission. And there was definitely a desire by vendors to continue to vend on Broadway or in the Broadway area. As far as the advisory committee and what made it up, there were representatives from MPD, NDOT, Health, County Clerk, Legal, sidewalk vendors, downtown business owners, and Nashville Downtown Partnership. Next slide. There's 3 slides. This one is the first. Some of what came out of those meetings addressed or more challenges related to enforcement. And this is the list, and I've provided this list already to the commission, so I won't spend too much time on it. But for those in attendance, there is a list here that you can read off the overhead. Next slide. The other was permitting was another challenge with there were some violations, citations by officers that weren't really getting back to the permitting authority, and there was just a lot of other challenges as far as multiple stands operating off of one permit, insurance issues, et cetera. Next slide. The last but not least, vending area. There was some conflicts with the regulation and ordinance. There was no map. There was multiple maps, but there's not an official map. So we wanted to kind of clarify that in this ordinance. There was also, let's see here. Yep. So, and there's been some changes that have been noted from the last ordinance that was presented and the one that is now on the website. But the highlights for each one of these three categories I have highlighted in the ordinance so that you can kind of relate back those highlighted areas with whether it's regarding vending, enforcement, or permitting, because we wanted to connect the dots. We wanted to make sure that what was needed was actually incorporated into the changes in the ordinance. So we wanted to show that connectivity. Next slide. So just a summary of the results of the changes that are proposed in the ordinance. I wanted to kind of just highlight these, and we can pull these back up later if anybody wants to see them. But number one, I will read this for the audience. Permitting will transition from county clerk to NDOT, and that is an estimated time frame of the third quarter of 2023. Citations will be issued by MNPD and NDOT. We will have staff working closely with MNPD for a period of time, and then we will begin to issue citations by ourselves. Removal, impoundment, and disposal may be administered by NDOT, working cooperatively with MNPD and or the fire department. There will be a need probably on most occasions to have MNPD working with NDOT. Violation records will be maintained by NDOT, and permit denial, suspension, revocation will result from vendor noncompliance. And all of those are in the ordinance. City residents and visitors will be able to readily look up vendor permit status. One big thing with the ordinance and with the transition from county clerk to NDOT would be to try our best to incentivize legal street vending and try to reward those vendors that are complying with the ordinance and regulation. Permits will be issued per stand or cart or tray, and some of the definitions you'll see highlighted in the ordinance update. But we wanted to make that clear. There's just many stands, many carts, many trays operating off of one permit. Traffic and Parking Commission is granted the authority for adding restricted areas, adopting maps, and piloting future vending programs in locations to be determined. These locations can be within zones identified as restricted. There's actually 3 areas that are restricted. This applies to one of those restricted areas. Vendor compliance with pilot program rules will be essential for future participation. Next slide. As far as the map and some of the questions of where there is eligible areas for vending, we are showing both eligible sidewalk areas and the currently restricted areas. This is hard to see overhead, but just keep it on this view, Corby, for just a second. For the commissioners, you can see the legend at the bottom right has eligible sidewalks in green. This was using some layer filters that we had in our JS to identify 12-foot wide sidewalks, which is required by the commissioner regulations where buildings are present and adjacent to sidewalks. There is not a lot of 12-foot sidewalks adjacent to buildings. There is more 10-foot sidewalks, or 10-foot between 10 and 12. I do not have a map of that, but there is a significant increase in green for 10-foot sidewalks. There are some cities that do allow vending on 10-foot sidewalks where buildings are present, so that could be looked at a later date. Restricted area is in red. This is what is really hard for everyone to see. Corby, if you don't mind trying to zoom in to the red area for the audience. And if that was a bad idea, Corby, you can raise your hand.
So just to be clear, that map was showing 12-foot sidewalks.
It's
correct.
12 foot, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that was the last slide I had, but that information, I just want to make sure that was presented. Here it is. So it's a little bit more zoomed in. Maybe zoom out a little. Yeah, I think that's got most of it. And these are 3 areas that are kind of combined, restricted areas that are combined. But as I mentioned before in the previous slide, there is authority for the commission proposed in the ordinance regulation language to have a pilot program within the big red box. So I just want to make sure that was clear. I'm going to turn it over to John, Chair of the Commission, and we are going to pull up a Word document of the ordinance with the highlights. And in your handout package, you will have a 1-page cover that has those bulleted items for enforcement, permitting, vending area, and there'll also be color-coded legend in that cover page.
The one page, is that the summary of substantive changes to sidewalk vending ordinance?
Yes.
Is that the title? Is that, Commissioners, that's this? Okay. All right. Ms. Costonis, can you just briefly describe, okay, we have this ordinance before us. What's, just particularly, we also have a new member. State clearly and succinctly kind of what the role here is, what we're considering, please.
Absolutely. So what this ordinance does, and the ordinance is legislation for the Metropolitan Council ultimately, but because of this commission's area of authority under the charter says when a proposed ordinance affects traffic control or the use of streets by traffic, and traffic, by the way, includes pedestrian as well as vehicular traffic, and is not accompanied at introduction by a favorable recommendation of the Traffic and Parking Commission, a copy thereof shall be promptly delivered by the Metropolitan Clerk to the Commission, and the same shall not be passed on second reading until the recommendation of said Commission with respect to the proposal has been received or 30 days have elapsed without such recommendation. So it's that recommendation that's being talked about there that you're being asked to give today. And what we're doing is we're actually presenting this to you before any legislation has been filed with the council. So what we would hope for is that it would come out of the commission with a favorable recommendation to council, but that is entirely up to y'all. So the ordinance changes 3 sections of the Metro Code that is existing. So those are older ordinances that have been codified into the Metro Code. The first one is just getting rid of an obsolete provision about like vegetable curb markets or something like that, that I think was written a very long time ago. And the second one is kind of most of the substantial changes, and it's changes to 1308.040 of the Metropolitan Code. And then the very last provision is some changes to the provisions about sort of control of the right-of-way in terms of when obstacles can be removed and who can do that. And so that is in a different section of the code. That is in section, I want to say it's 1332-100. Yes. 1332-100 is amended, and then 1332-105 is a new section that is enacted in order to accomplish that. Okay, yes. So on the first two are referenced in the first page where you see the section 1 and section 2 right there. So the first thing, chapter 6104 of the Metropolitan Code is deleted. That's the old obsolete curb market thing. Then the next thing, that section 1308.040 of the code shall be deleted in its entirety and replaced with the following. So what we would do is just take out what's in the code now and put this chunk in. And this goes for quite a few pages, if you don't mind scrolling down a bit, Corby. Keep going, keep going. Yeah. Keep going, keep going. Keep going. So you can see we made quite a few changes to that section with all of Jason's helpful highlighting. And that includes, pause for just a second if you don't mind, Corby. That includes the disciplinary jurisdiction of this commission, which you already have under existing law. We just haven't exercised it very often. So existing permitted vendors who commit violations may come before this commission for discipline, like revocation or suspension of their permit. You can keep scrolling now. Thanks, Corby. And there's some penalty amounts provided, but that's a whole nother discussion. And okay, so you see here at the very top, it says section 3. So those are the sections of the ordinance itself. So this is a different thing than section 2, which was 1308.040. This is 1332-100 and 105. 105 is under section 4, actually. Yes, sorry. So those are the sort of walkthrough of major changes, I guess. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to help answer.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Custodes. Okay. Commissioner Woods.
Thank you so much, and thank you, staff, for all of the feedback and involving everyone. And this question I don't know if this is something for legal or if this is something for our council member. So from this commission, are we going to need 2 different motions for council if we approve what has been given to us for section 1 and 2 is one motion?
Oh, the entire ordinance.
Or
the entire ordinance is one document. So you would be recommending the entire ordinance, or not recommending it, or recommending it subject to some condition that we make some changes here and there, whatever y'all want to do.
Okay. But it's just called recommend the entire ordinance as far as the wording that we need to go on.
Yes, but if you want to make some changes here or there, that can be done to any of the 4 sections.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? And first off, thank you for, I know many people submitted comments to staff, so thank you. And I think those got incorporated. All right. Commissioners, comments? Yes, council member.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I appreciate the time, colleagues, to defer this one meeting. And I did submit an extensive list of comments and questions, and I do appreciate those being responded to both in the presentation and in the document. I think just kind of for the council perspective, I do still see some, whether they be organizational redactional or typographical, that kind of stuff. Like I'm not going to get into that here, but I think if we would just in whatever our future motion would be, would acknowledge that on the council side there may be some changes of a housekeeping nature. I think as long as the commission articulates that, then when I get it on the council side, then that's appropriate for those changes. So, Chair, I won't go into the typographical type stuff, but one thing I guess that is more kind of in a general space is I appreciate, because I did have a question about it, about whether or not we should codify the fees for the permit. And I saw as drafted here, we have pulled that out. But then I also saw that we had, from a violations perspective, that we had still codified those amounts. And so I wanted to ask Ms. Costonis if she could speak to the difference there or the decision around that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So yes, the commission, you all will have a certain amount of discretion under this ordinance. You did before, and you will continue to. It's maybe laid out in a little more detail what specifically you have the authority to do. And one of those things is to set the amount of the permit fee. So that was the first thing that the council member was referencing. There is a section, could you scroll up a little bit? Right there, yeah. So there's a section with penalties that have some specific amounts listed. Now, having said that, actually, if you could scroll up a teeny bit more, Corby, yeah. So as you can see, it says penalties shall be as is provided for in section 101.030 of this code, or to the extent permitted by law, as follows. So we have some tight restrictions in Tennessee on penalties that are enforced by a court for this type of violation. And basically, the courts have held that our Tennessee Constitution requires that a fine of over $50 in amount actually would have to go to a jury trial. So generally, we just don't set fines for more than $50. So basically, the true amount of the fines for all of these violations would be $50. But there is some possibility that maybe the state could change something in future, and we often do have provisions in the code throughout the Metropolitan Code, not just in this chapter or title, that do set at higher fines than $50. And, like I said, the state could change something and give us the opportunity to do that. So that's why we kind of put in that conditional language in there, qualifying that by saying to the extent permitted by law, because really right now, all the law really permits is a $50 fine per violation per day. So if you have like 7 violations, you can have $50 for each of those violations. And if you let it ride for days at a time, that can pile up as well.
Thank you. Does that address your question?
It does. Thank you. And I guess just by way of follow-up question, so to your point about places in the code where we have codified a fine above 50, are there special provisions in state law? Because I know often through council we're having kind of fees or fine studies and so forth, and so there's the $50 per state law per violation per day, as you highlighted, but then there's also the administration of that, and so there is sort of the fee plus what state allows to be administration. So do you all find that your language using up to that amount contemplates needing to include the administrative cost?
So again, I think that's two different things. So okay. The permit fees do contemplate all of the administrative costs. Okay. Those amounts are recommended to you all and set by you all to account for all of that. And that type of a calculation is allowed. When we're setting a fee amount, we can set it to cover Metro's actual costs, including administrative costs, including enforcement costs, including whatever costs that we have in administering this ordinance. However, we can't go above that because then it would be revenue generating, and that puts it in the realm of a tax that has to be adopted only under certain specific state authority. So there is that side of it. Then on the penalty side of it, the $50 is flat out. And of course, this was adopted in the Tennessee Constitution back when $50 was quite a lot of money, and it's just never been changed. The $50 is kind of set in stone by state law right now, so we don't have the ability to adjust that for administrative costs, but the administrative costs should be adjusted in the permit fee, should be addressed in the permit fee amount.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I guess, Chair, that question then about kind of contemplating future changes. So here I see, we contemplate in the third quarter of 2023, this permitting process will no longer be administered by the county clerk, but rather by NDOT. So throughout this ordinance as now drafted, it says county clerk or NDOT, county clerk or NDOT. Is that a placeholder in the intervening time for us to work that out once we get over to council, or will that remain codified? And are you all suggesting a delayed effective date from an implementation perspective, or it being effective upon passage? So I guess I'm just asking, Chair, more generally about kind of prospective language that's forward-looking, and then more practically the transition between county clerk and NDOT.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to defer to Brad to the sort of policy questions that were incorporated in that question, but this commission and council both have opportunities to change this document. So if you all see things that you think need to be made as changes today, your ultimate motion can be to move to recommend it to council on the condition that we make certain specific changes. And you, in fact, did that recently with the smart parking. So it would be very similar to that. Then once it gets to council, council can make whatever changes they want to make, and probably will. So and those will be discussed, filed as amendments, and discussed and debated in all the council committees. So there are opportunities for editing at both stages.
Okay. Other commissioners have some questions.
I believe Ms. Castanes was directing part of that question as it relates to county clerk and NDOT to Mr. Freeze.
Yes, Councilmember. So, Brad Freeze with NDOT. So the question was related to why currently we have it as both in there, and that is to account for the transition period in there. So we have the county clerk and NDOT listed in there as both, so we can have that in there now as we go through the transition. Now, if you're talking about the fee studies in the future, we are planning to do a fee study and incorporate this in there for future consideration by traffic and parking. When we talk about the fees associated, these that we're referencing now are the penalty fees. We did not change any of these in the ordinance. They were as written in the ordinance, but per your argument earlier about removing them, we would not have any for consistency like we have for the permit fees as well. We have no objection to that either if you want to have it consistently out of the code as well.
Okay, Chair, I don't necessarily have a strong feeling about that. Okay. And again, I think it will just kind of go down to our final motion, the extent to which we're going to say housekeeping generally, or we're going to try to kind of hyper articulate every single change that we want to have in this ordinance, which I think will be difficult.
We'll see. Okay, Commissioner Mason.
Yes, I wanted to ask Mr. Odom or staff, You all's plan for enforcement and how you all are working with Nashville Police to enforce this policy? And then you mentioned a pilot program. Could you speak more to that pilot program and what that looks like?
Yes. As far as working with the police, I believe there was a discussion that was had with our NDOT's director and the chief and also their officers with staff to partner up. I believe it was staff from our parking staff that issue citations for illegal parking. If I'm wrong, Brad, correct me.
You're correct.
But that was kind of the intent, to work together initially once this passed. And then when we felt comfortable, because learning from the officers, what to look for and things that are going on, we thought that would be best to partner.
Commissioner Mason, so we have been working with Metro PD when we've been drafting this and actually having that discussion about operationally how it functions in there. So we have actually, when we talk about confiscation of materials and equipment, we have the space and the real estate in order to do that in a protected way. But we will have to work with Metro PD during that operations and when we identify and choose to do that. And we will work hand in hand with them in the field during that process.
Yeah, glad to hear that. I think safety is the main thing when going out and enforcing this from whoever that employee is, especially on the weekends and at night. And then the pilot program, if you could expound on that a little bit.
I think we just, looking at the map and looking at areas where I mentioned this before earlier this summer, that the regulations need to be revisited to just make sure they make sense with our context in downtown Nashville. Where can people vend? I think there's vendors that are present today that want to vend legally. I think probably the majority in the room they care. Those who are not in the room probably do not care. So we do not want to punish those who are trying to operate legally and to contribute to downtown Nashville and what makes our city great. So I think the pilot program really crystallized, giving NDOT and specifically the commission the authority to try something similar to the success of our food truck pilot program has been very successful. I've even seen it in articles nationally. I think we have one of the top, listed as 12th in the country as far as opportunities for people to start a new business in food trucks. So I think with that said, NDOT overseeing that pilot program and also taking on an additional pilot program of sidewalk vending and doing it in a smart, fair way in downtown Nashville, it would just be an opportunity, I think, a win-win for everyone.
I appreciate that perspective, and I don't know that is listed in here anyway. But Chairman, if we could get more information on that in the near future. To your point, there are people out here that do things the right way, and I think that's the avenue for us to look at to allow them to try some positive or some smart ways to vend down there if it does work.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Commissioner, other question. I have a question. Is the technology in place to do the program the way you want to do it? Because that's always been a struggle for many of the issues here.
Yeah, there's been some internal discussions. I think we would like to have like a request for information to go out and just to see what could be brought into play in downtown Nashville as far as technology to incentivize legal vending, to remote legal vending. Everybody has a smartphone. Most everybody has a smartphone and know how to use a QR code, and to be able to scan somebody's badge and get a green check, or, you know, get sent to a list where it shows that they're following all the rules and the hot dogs are safe and everything is good. Anything to kind of encourage good behavior, following the law, would be top on our list.
You have a comment?
I would add, your question is the technology there present. So it is not there present, the technology, but that's what we anticipate bringing online here. When we take this over from the county clerk, is actually deploying that technology to do so. So that is part of what we're doing. Is when I mentioned the fee study, and they're actually determining what we actually need as far as technology standpoint. To actually help facilitate that. In addition to what Jason said, we have contemplated the idea of doing an RFP, request for information, request for proposals when it comes to piloting a program, so we could see what opportunities are out there and what best practices could we bring to the city of Nashville.
The other question I have, this appeal process, is that an appeal process currently in place?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this draft ordinance doesn't change the appeal process?
There may be a few edits to that section, but they're not, in my opinion, particularly substantial. There may be some some references here and there that are, kind of made more consistent, more like the housekeeping changes, I think, that the council member was talking about. But the gist of that section, I think, remains essentially what it is now. And I've been working with this commission for, I want to say, about 14 years. And in that period of time, I've seen 2 of these appeals. And I think they were both the same guy. So it hasn't been something that y'all have done a lot. But going forward, since they want to do more vigorous enforcement, it will be something that they will want to expand and use, and it will probably come before you more often, because it is important that the vendors who are cited have due process and have the opportunity to present their side of the facts.
So we may need to update our processes or procedures for those appeals so that
as long as we keep that consistent with what the code provides, we could do that, certainly.
So, because I'm just kind of curious about, because the process works to protect those who are legal, is how it's really designed.
So this is what's tricky in terms of enforcement. You're going to have 2 different kinds of enforcement. You're going to have the enforcement against the people who are permitted, and that is where you all have the disciplinary jurisdiction. So for that, we can suspend or revoke or whatever penalty you all think is appropriate. Now we also have people who kind of come in fly by night, don't have a permit, aren't trying to get a permit, just trying to get away with something. And we also need to take enforcement action against those folks. Like Jason or Brad were saying, probably the people who aren't in this room and who don't care. That has to be done through other measures. It can be done through the $50 penalty that we talked about, which can then be enforced through the courts, so it doesn't have to come before this commission. And then the ability to remove obstructive carts that have been left there and impound them, as the folks from NDOT were talking about, would also be an effective measure against the individuals who don't have permits and don't care to have permits. And then finally, the third level of that, and this is not a change that we're making, but we've added a reference in our Metro Code to a couple of state law criminal provisions that would be violated in kind of an extreme case of one of those fly-by-night vendors. So warning them, like, if you are not complying with this, you could actually be cited for a criminal offense.
So under the current code, is it those who've been permitted to vend are the ones who are allowed to appeal? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Allowing a fly-by-night person to come to the commission to appeal. That's a different process.
Well, here's what I would say to that. As to most of it, correct. As far as the penalties, the $50 fines, those will go to environmental court, part of General Sessions Court, and be enforced in that context. But the impoundment process, that is another one of those areas where this ordinance does provide for this commission to kind of expand on it with regulations a little bit more. You may want to do some rulemaking to establish more specific process for that, and maybe have an appeal opportunity in the context of that process. I worked on some ideas on that already that we can address at a future date if that's something y'all want to do.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Is there a motion? Yes.
Two questions. On your printout, you showed $250 to $500 fine. Then you turn around and say it's just $50. Now, where did the $250 to $500 come in?
So they are actually in the existing code, as Mr. Freeze was explaining. So we did not change that. All we changed was some of the language leading up to it. We just said, to the extent permitted by law. At this point in time, I do not believe it is permitted by law. Could state law potentially change, and it could come to be permitted by law in the future? Maybe. So we wanted to leave the door open for that possibility.
Okay. Number two, if somebody comes up and parks their little cart in front of my business on Broad, what right do I have?
So you don't have a private right of action under those circumstances.
So I have no rights.
Not to sue him directly in the courts of law.
But you can't ask them to move.
You would have to ask Metro regulators to ask him to do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. Yes, council member.
Chair Green, I'd like where your questions were going about the hearings and that process and kind of what would come to us and what would not. So thank you. I appreciate some of that clarification. I did want to ask in, let's see, section, or I guess B, so B3E II, or I guess little 2.
What page? Once you read the page number. That. I think that's page 4. Okay. All right. Do you have a specific issue?
Yes. So the code here says, as drafted, maintain a, quote, health permit from the local health department. And so, again, this is going to be somewhat of a combination question because some of this can just be addressed by housekeeping. But I did want to ask, so when I went to the Metro Public Health Department, so I think we should just be specific with the department name, I went to their website and put in their search health permit. The only thing I got was apply for a public pool permit. So I just want to understand, what is a health permit? And to the extent that, you know, the area of the code that is the health department code, do we need to kind of cross-reference out? So vendors who have food involved, right, this contemplates and outlines that they have to be in touch with the health department too, and how those two things come together. But is there specific permit language on the health side? assume they have very specific permits to selling food and so forth. So
They do. I believe it is under, what they actually do, I believe, is implement state regulations. So I think it's actually in the substance of it is actually in those state regulations, and that's just, and again, this is not my area of expertise, so I think this is right, but I can't 100% say for sure that this is right, that the enforcement of that is delegated to our local health department. And I believe it applies only to preparing foods. I don't believe it applies to selling like prepackaged sealed foods. So I think we tried to clarify that language a little bit in the code as well.
okay, so I guess that was I was wondering if not clarifying it was intentional, because again, we're just referring to it as a health permit in this draft.
Yeah, so we would absolutely require them to do whatever the Department of Health wants them to do, and I presume that that would be to comply with state law and state regulations.
Okay, and then I guess thinking ahead as to violations, whether as determined by the health department or NDOT or MNPD. And a lot of the whole reason we're here having this conversation, right, is who does what. And so am I understanding that the only thing that would come back to us would be particular to not granting the permit or revocation of the permit, suspension of the permit, whether that be on the content of the application itself, like you were untruthful, right, in your application, or you showed the photo of your vending stand, this is how it was going to be, you went out there and then per our records that we can see, colleagues, because now we've asked for a photograph of the stand, you get out there and, oh, you know what, it's 3 times big and we're not ADA compliant here, and so we're going to do what at that juncture? I mean, does a vendor have a particular action to dispute, say, MNPD or NDOT?
Yes. So if they are issued a citation, and just to put it in a little more context, there is another provision of the Metropolitan Code, I believe it's section 124030, and it's written to be consistent with state law, which allows Metro employees of various different departments, and it has an including but not limited to list that includes NDOT, maybe by its former designation of Public Works, and also staff of the Traffic and Parking Commission, this commission. And so those individuals are authorized to issue citations, as well as police. Police can issue citations for any violation of the Metro Code. Have authority to issue citations along with police officers. Now, those citations would go to environmental court for trial. So they would have an opportunity to be heard about that, but it would be in the context of a court and not in the context of this commission. So what I'm thinking, the only things that you all are going to hear are going to be the disciplinary matters involving existing permittees that already have permits, and possibly if we want to create, and this is up to you all in the future, you know, in terms of developing more rulemaking on the issue of the impoundments, if you all want to have an opportunity for that to come before you as well, that might be appropriate due process for someone, you know, whose property has been confiscated. And so it's possible that you all could end up having a role in that as well. But this ordinance as written does not provide for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Woods.
I'm ready to make a motion
Okay.
that we approve this ordinance with the flexibility of council making the changes as needed for enforcement. Does that work, legal counsel?
Is that what the council member wanted. Did you want it to say housekeeping?
What kind of language would you?
You're on the right track, but it seemed that what you were saying was the changes were only specific to enforcement, and I would ask colleagues, again, in the spirit of housekeeping, clarity, typographical as to form, just anything in that space, because there's still quite a lot of work, in my view, that needs to be done.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
always assume there's some cleaning up done when language is passed. Is that correct, Ms. Costonis?
So, at a couple of different stages.
I'm sorry.
So, of course, during the hearings about it before, it's going to be an ordinance. An ordinance goes to council for 3 readings. While it is on second reading that same night or the night before, it is referred to various different council committees for public discussion. Anyone can come to those meetings as well. Often, somebody might see an issue and decide to defer the bill and offer an amendment to change or fix something that they perceived as a result of their review of the bill or arising out of those public discussions.
So what kind of wording do I need for this commission to approve the ordinance with changes that need to be made? Just period?
So you are recommending it to council.
Yes.
And you are asking council, I guess, to, in addition to whatever other changes they might have authority to make, to maybe clean up some housekeeping or typographical issues that the council member has observed? Is that right?
I think that would work. I mean, my intent would be to clean this up before we file it on the council side, so that it moves through the 3 readings before the public. What is online is very clear to citizens, potential vendors, business owners, so they can kind of see it in its close to final form. To Ms. Costonis' point, there may be further amendments, but I'm just wanting us to make sure we're clear as a commission that we're not saying that all these T's are crossed and all these I's are dotted, because,
I assume the council will.
Yeah.
The council's going to do its due diligence. We just need to get it to you.
Yes, ma'am. I will do my due diligence.
We can
I always
make some
assume
changes
that cleanup happens.
Yeah, we can make some of the cleanup before the filing of the bill, I think is what the council member is suggesting. And that would just basically be you all saying that you recommend it, maybe delegating back to NDOT with consultation with whoever wants to have input, I guess, the ability to make ministerial changes, not like really substantive material ones, but the ministerial changes to typos or, weird paragraph annotation or
So can I make a motion with what you said, period?
No, wait.
it would be a motion to recommend to the council the bill as drafted, but with the understanding that some ministerial mistakes would be corrected prior to filing.
What kind of cleanup are you talking about, Saberly?
I call it hiring a good editor.
Exactly.
Do what?
Exactly. I mean, editing.
Hiring a good editor. That's what was missing in my college
So
papers.
can we, with this motion, does that mean it can take the next step to go to council rather than coming back here next month?
If this bill obtains a favorable recommendation from this commission, then it can go to council with that recommendation. We'd probably just incorporate that into a letter that would be filed with the bill acknowledging that you all have made this motion. And then the clerk would not have to refer that bill back to this commission at the point after it's filed when they see that it would normally be a mandatory referral to this commission, because they will see that it already came with a favorable recommendation from this commission.
I need to amend the motion, okay? All right, so I'm going to amend the motion that we recommend that the bill that's been drafted move ahead with the editing needed before it's filed by the council.
Okay, we have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All right, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moves forward. Thank you, everyone. Staff, thank you for your work. Public, thank you for participating. And thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is we're going to get an update. We'll let the room clear. So we've had the motion is passed, and our next item on the agenda is an update on Vision Zero. Okay. All right. Yes. All right. Excuse me. We're going to move on to our next item on the agenda. We've had numerous public hearings about this item, and this item is being referred to council, and at council there'll be an opportunity for further public discussion of the ordinance. So, Mr. Freeze.
Commissioners, Jason Olm is going to be presenting a presentation on their Vision Zero update.
All right, so before we start this presentation, at the risk of being theatrical, I am hoping that Vision Zero means that I do not have to walk around with this vest every single time I go walking in my neighborhood, even when I'm walking on sidewalks and going across crosswalks. So I think Mr. Mason has one of these vests too, that we can, maybe we have a market to sell these, but I'm being a little extreme, theatrical.
Your point is well made.
But it does seem that, because I almost got hit the other day and I was wearing this when I was in a crosswalk. So to me, Vision Zero means walking, you should wear good clothes, but I don't have to wear a construction vest, safety vest, every time I venture out. And I know Mr. Mason, he has a brand new baby, and he shouldn't have to venture out with his baby in a stroller wearing his construction PPE. All right, so my commentary aside, theatrics, staff. Thank you, commissioners, for indulging me.
There was a letter left to the commissioners. I will give this to you. This is regarding the vending ordinance. There's 4 others that you have in your possession. These have just kind of come in ad hoc, but we are keeping all of these. On to the Vision Zero presentation. This was presented before, probably multiple times. I think most recent to Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. I shortened down that presentation just a little bit because I thought this would last maybe 4 hours, the ordinance review. So we're going to just blow through here real quick. Commissioners, have you seen this before? Some of you may have, depending on what committees you sit on.
So I can give maybe some background, some setup for you, Jason. So as you know, we are a Vision Zero city here in Nashville. So we, last year, we actually worked very hard to put together, over the last couple of years, a Vision Zero action plan. And then at the end of last year, we rolled that into developing our 5-year Vision Zero implementation plan. So we presented a presentation like this to the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee committee with the council of explaining our Vision Zero action plan, but also going into detail about our Vision Zero implementation plan. So those are the things that we're actually doing, right? So we have our action plan outlining that purpose and need. In Chairman Green, like you mentioned at the start, we have an issue. We have a challenge here in Nashville, especially for our most vulnerable road users on our system, and how we can design our system to be where there's more survivable situations and more awareness of pedestrians and cyclists on our roadway and more protection for them. So that's what we presented, and this actually is a presentation sharing a little bit of background at that. So Jason, I just wanted to provide you a little bit of a setup in there as far as what we're talking about.
You can take it if you want. So the slide that we have up right now actually is, just go back one slide, Corby, if you don't mind. Just on the left, there's notes, 6% of streets account for 59% of all fatal and serious injury crashes, all modes. I think the Vision Zero plan is really trying to focus on, making the biggest splash with the funds that we have to reduce injuries to pedestrians, to cyclists, and to drivers. And there's also online a map that's a high-injury network for pedestrians, cyclists, and for all the above. And I don't know.
So as part of the development of the Vision Zero action plan, we looked at a lot of data. We looked at a lot of crash data out there. And with that data, we developed what we call our high injury network, where we want to focus first on and where we see the highest priority level. So you can see here, 6% of our streets account for 59% of our fatal and serious injury crashes. So mainly we have a lot of issues on our pikes, on our major routes that are not designed as they should be to help those most vulnerable road users. So that's really what we were looking at when we developed our action plan, is where do we start first? Where do we focus? And how do we become more proactive in addressing those needs? So that was what we developed. As part of that, you can actually see that online and go out there and see where the hot spots are located across Nashville. So, Corby, you can go ahead and switch over to the next one. So, we like to talk about what we call the 5 E's, the 5E frameworks of traffic safety. Those are engineering, evaluation, encouragement, education, and enforcement. So it's no one of these alone can actually achieve what we want to do when we're talking about Vision Zero. We have to have all these working together. So in addition to the engineering, how we build our roads, how do we evaluate our system? What is the data that we look at? How do we encourage good behavior on our system? How do we educate the driver and the pedestrian as well? And how do we support enforcement to make sure that we are enforcing the traffic laws that we do have out there? So that's what we call our 5 E's approach, and that was the prism in which we viewed Vision Zero moving forward with our implementation plan. And additionally, on this slide, you can see the 5 themes. Those are the 5 themes that came out of our Vision Zero action plan, where we want to create safe streets for everyone. We want to prioritize equity. We want to increase collaboration and transparency of our projects that we're working on and what we're doing. We want to promote a safety of culture, because it is really about a change in culture change, not only for the DOT, but a culture change for the entire city of Nashville. We are, unfortunately, as a society, fairly desensitized when it comes to incidents that happen on our roadways. You wake up. What were you to do if you wake up the next morning and you see on the news that 5 jumbo jets fell out of the sky and everyone perished? Well, that's what we're seeing on our roads every year here in Tennessee. So it should cut everyone deep to see these type of numbers. And that's where it's going to take really this culture change that we're trying to get across in there as well. So promoting that safety of culture, promote that culture of safety and improve the data quality. So we have a lot of data, but we have a lot of gaps in our data. So for example, we use 3-year crash data to look at how we prioritize projects. Well, what we're not seeing are the near misses, the number of near misses that are out there where they don't get reported. So what other data sources can we look at and use to bring in and identify areas where we can be more proactive in responding?
Mr. Freeze, if I may.
Yes.
Chair, may we interject questions into the presentation? Is that okay? Or do you want to let the presentation go in full and questions after?
How much more of the presentation do you have, Mr. Freeze?
We have several slides. We have around 20 slides.
Let's, limit, let's
Sure.
try to be concise and so we can move along and get to the crux of it.
Concise question on your point about 3-year crash data, but not having really good data about near misses. And, there are some online platforms that are kind of crowdsourced about near misses. And so as we prioritize our kind of capital investments where we have fatalities, where we have crashes, and where we have near misses, do we contemplate any plan about that? Could you speak specifically to garnering that near miss data, please?
I can speak specifically to that. So we are actually, as part of our Vision Zero implementation plan, we have reserved funding to actually procure some probe data. In the crowdsourced data that you're referring to, there's data that's called hard braking data, where you can get actually data from vehicles from hard braking events, where you can actually start to look at those near miss incidents. But there's additionally other data sources, crowdsourced data that you mentioned from third parties that we're looking as part of our Vision Zero implementation plan of investing in.
Do we really need to invest, though? Well, I guess Twitter may die, and where will these crowdsourced things live? But, there is free data. There is free data out there that we're pulling in, but there's also paid data that we're looking at bringing in additional resources. Okay. We want to take advantage of everything that we can. Thank you.
Just to suggest, we want to try to get an overview for the commissioners of this, but also try to keep it somewhat in context of what this commission, because not everything that's part of Vision Zero is under the purview of this commission. So we don't design the streets, but there are some things that we've been involved with, traffic calming, maybe waste directions of street trap, et cetera. So if you try to keep some context to it, that would be helpful. Otherwise, we could be here quite a long time because this is an important subject. But.
Yes, sir. So you can go ahead and click over to the next slide, Corby. So I'm not going to go into very much detail about this slide, but this just shows you our Vision Zero funding that we are requesting as part of our implementation plan and how it's broken down. You can see that 5E framework there again that we've talked about and how we are budgeting. Obviously, a good part of that is engineering actually projects. Like, for example, things that the scope of this committee where we're talking about the deployment of pedestrian phasing or pedestrian-only crossings, pedestrian signalized locations mid-block, things that would come through the purview of this committee. So those engineering solutions, we are actually looking at what we call quick build projects where we can be more proactive in identifying based on the injury network where are some locations that we can get out there now and not and do more innovative projects to help support the safety of pedestrians and more vulnerable road users. So you can go ahead and click over to the next one. So this is what I was talking about when I talk about the engineering actions quick build. So this just further refines the budget that we've broken down. And I won't get too much into the weeds on this slide other than say we've got quite a bit of work that we are planning to do as part of our implementation plan, both in the quick build, the capital overall, more transformative projects. For example, we have funding for Nolensville Road specifically that's in our capital budget now that we are actually just applied for a Safe Streets for All grant on to actually push that even further and do a more transformative project where we're looking at how it's designed from the very first start. So you can go ahead and click over to the next slide, Corby. This just goes over what we're talking about when we talk about those engineering quick build actions and what the buckets they fall into. So you can see we're talking about quick build in timeframes of things that we can do in 6 to 12 months, and then things that we can do in 12 to 18 months in there. So these are the menu of different strategies that we're looking at, and I'll provide you a little bit more of an update of things that we've recently done as part of these here in a minute. So you can go ahead and click over to the next one, Corby. So again, we have 15 miles of roadway on 19 corridors that we've already identified for our quick build projects. These are the bullets, or the little highlighted areas when we're actually looking at based on the crash data that we have seen in our higher injury network. So focusing really on those pedestrian generators, schools, libraries, parks, hospitals, there where there's traffic, those pedestrian generating locations out there on our system. So that's just gives you an idea of the locations that we've already identified and we're moving forward to actually address. If you can click over to the next one. So this just shows you more of an outline of what we're talking about, where our capital projects, the more transformative projects, where we're looking at advancing, pedestrian traffic, advancing pedestrian traffic control, mid-block, looking at that higher injury network improvements, working hand in hand with TDOT. So one of the things that we've noticed, or a lot of our incidents are on, a lot of our higher injury network focuses in on areas where we share operational responsibility with the Tennessee Department of Transportation. So we worked hand in hand with them a lot. We conduct roadway safety audits with them as well very frequently. So that cooperation is going to be key as we move forward with our Vision Zero implementation plan, how we work back and forth. And we've actually had a lot of positive meetings about our implementation plan here and have received a lot of great support from Tennessee Department of Transportation. So our neighborhood traffic calming program projects selected based on public request and geographic equity. So you know that we have a very popular traffic calming program. Only over 400 streets have been applied for in there. We put out 50 projects a year, or we award 50 projects a year on that, and we're working very hard to make sure we accelerate the delivery of those projects. So we've actually, over the last 3 months, we have instituted some additional changes and enhancements to that program. And then another thing, major lighting improvements, something that we see a commonality in the trend is with lighting, not appropriate lighting. Roadway lighting is a huge issue we're looking to invest in locations along the high injury network where we are increasing the quality of our lighting, not just for the street, but also for the pedestrian as well, to make sure that those users are clearly visible by motorists and others on the system. You can go ahead and, you already did. So this just shows you our timeline. So year one is actually where we're at currently. We're scoping a lot of projects and doing a lot of conceptual design currently. We are working hand in hand with the consultant community here in Nashville as well. We've had, Jason, I know over the last 3 weeks, we have an active work order right now with barge design, where we're actually doing more detailed evaluation of the quick build solutions that I showed you earlier on the screen in there, and actually looking at those projects that we can move forward with. You can go ahead and click over to the next one. So evaluation. Part of what was of our Vision Zero implementation plan was the formation of our advisory committee. Our Vision Zero advisory committee is going to be a key part moving forward in how we receive public feedback and subject matter expert feedback in some cases on different projects and different ways to actually have a real impact on safety on the system. So we've gone through the process of soliciting applications to be members of our advisory committee. Those have actually been received. We received well over 100 applications. So we have a large list to call through and look through to find those members, and we're actually going through that right now and analyzing that information. We hope to have that advisory committee meeting within the next month. So not last but not least, education and encouragement actions, educational and awareness campaigns. We are looking to partner with the Tennessee Department of Transportation, and then we have recently been awarded a grant from the Governor's Highway Safety Office to actually invest in more educational and encouragement campaigns. So we hope to get that out fairly soon, and we're working with our community relations, Courtney Stone, with the Nashville Department of Transportation on those efforts as far as encouragement and education campaigns. So you can go ahead and click to the next one. So go, and then working hand in hand with Metro Nashville PD, they've actually gone really jumped right in with this Vision Zero implementation plan, and specifically on the higher engineer network. I know that they are actually using that information on our higher engineer network for uptake and staging enforcement, which is actually, we're very encouraged to see having a real impact in those areas on our higher engineer network. So we're working hand in hand with Metro Nashville PD.
Quick question, Chair, based on that, can you talk about automated enforcement within school zones? State law enable that? Can you, I don't know, Commissioners, I often get that question around speeding enforcement. What can we do? What can't we do?
Yeah, it is true. State law does allow for automated enforcement within school zones. That's one of the exceptions that they have out there. We have talked about that with Metro Nashville PD, and we will continue to push that forward as an option. Right now, I can't report on anything as far as progress on an actual plan in place to do so, but that is something that we want to look at in the future.
Okay, thank you.
So here are some more recent deployments. So over the last 3 months, we've deployed along 67 intersections, what's called leading pedestrian intervals. This is a safety mitigation strategy where you actually give pedestrians a head start and a priority at intersections so they can establish a presence in a crosswalk. It has been found nationally to reduce those conflicts by 13%. So we have gone ahead and we've deployed 67 LPIs, leading pedestrian interval locations, but we also have a long list of others that we're looking to deploy as part of other retiming plans that we are deploying.
Can you explain a little bit, please? What
Yes.
I don't know. I walk a lot, so if I'm pushing a button to use, is this for ones that are regulated? You push
Correct.
a button to walk across the street.
So what it does is it actually starts the pedestrian phase before it starts any other traffic phase. So it actually gives the pedestrian a priority to enter into the intersection in there. And especially when it comes to right turn on red and in other locations, in there, it enables that to get a head start on there. In there, I'm not saying we have other strategies that we're looking at on top of that, but that's one way that has been proven to help.
Just an observation is, even when crosswalks are put in on streets, I think there's a lot of confusion by pedestrians as do they stand on the curb? Do they start walking in? It's, or if you stand there at the curb, or the car's going to stop, or do you have to almost walk in and make them stop? And it's a very unsafe situation, and it's very unclear. Any kind of things like this that can help.
So we are looking at campaigns as far as educational campaigns, and that's one of the things that I've noticed as well. There is a misunderstanding with the pedestrian phasing. When you see a flashing "don't walk," people can misunderstand that. It doesn't mean stop walking if you're already walking. It means continue the walk. It only means at the start of the phase, if it's flashing "don't walk," to not start your walking movement during that period of time. But that is an education area that we're looking to increase and do a better job at doing. It's a good.
Mr. Freeze, do you all have a map or a list of where you've done all these LPIs?
We do, yes.
Okay, is that, I mean, I don't know if
I don't
everybody
have
wants
this
to
in
see
our
the
presentation, but we
I
can
assume that
provide
staff
it.
can share this
I appreciate that.
presentation with
Yes.
everyone.
And I think my reason in asking is from a policy perspective, colleagues, right? So whether, right turn on red or not having right turn on red, not having right turn on red in certain zones or areas, like maybe downtown, or I wonder the research that went into the lead pedestrian intervals, does that also inform your advice to this commission about no right on red?
Yes, the same data would definitely help inform in those decisions.
Do you anticipate having any recommendations to this commission
We do.
for no right on red in
Yes.
particular
We do anticipate
locations?
that. Sorry to speak over you.
No, that's fine. And so I guess, often what comes before us is, these particular locations. But are you all also contemplating, like, say, in the vicinity of Vanderbilt University, or really these high kind of trip generator areas? So there's locational, but there's also like zone, right? And I think it's often hard in Davidson County, Chair, because we're 526 square miles. So little 5 square mile cities can say no right on red in our town, right? But that's very difficult in Davidson County. So I'm just wondering if you're kind of layering that approach or what you anticipate.
We are. So looking at this, I mean, LPI is just one strategy that we're looking. No right turn on red is another strategy that we're looking at pairing on to this as well. So we look at it when I mentioned quick build earlier. There's a lot of quick build opportunity strategies that we can do, and timing is one thing that we're going to be doing first as a priority. Okay. So this is another strategy. These are called rectangular rapid flashing beacon deployments. So right now we have located about 130 locations that we are going to be deploying in Nashville. This just shows you a recent deployment within the last 3 weeks that we've put out there. This is actually on Cleveland Street, actually, and it actually came before this commission last year. So just as an update, we have deployed at those locations for a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. They have been proven to help increase the visibility. They have a very high intensity flash, yellow and white flash out there that we have seen. This is one step. We also are talking about, as I said earlier, pedestrian-only control, where we're actually having a red ball provided to the public, to the motors, to actually have pedestrian priority crossings as well. So that just gives you a little bit of overview of our Vision Zero implementation plan. I know it went pretty long, Chair. I apologize for that, but we wanted to give you some updates.
Okay. Well, I think the point was to try to educate commission members on where we are with this, because I think it's this recently passed council, the Vision Zero. And and again, welcome to our new member, Commissioner Woods.
Could I ask that you all come back someday and the signs above pedestrian walkways say flashing light? They have a flashing light state law about. I mean, our police have everything in the world to do. Who's going to enforce this? I mean, what maybe coming back in a few months and talking to us about that?
Yes, officer.
Commissioner, if I can, Chairman, I'm sorry, if I can speak to that. We've worked with NDOT on the high injury networks, and just so you know, for the traffic division, which is where a majority of our traffic enforcement takes place, we're working with them, and that is where our enforcement takes place. So we're focusing on the causative factors that lead towards injury and fatal crashes already, to try and reduce the numbers of crashes that take place. And Chairman, you said you didn't want to be dramatic at the beginning, but I just want to tag along to what you said. You know, Nashville has seen a steady increase in fatal crashes for the last 5 years. And this year, at this point, we've had 113 fatal crashes. And since we're talking about pedestrians, 40 of those crashes have involved pedestrians. So we have some challenges, but to what Mr. Freeze said, we are using the high injury networks for our enforcement areas. We've been doing that for 9 quarters. And 8 of those 9 quarters, we have seen a reduction in the number of crashes in those areas where our officers are working, doing the enforcement, focused on things like what you talked about, pedestrian safe crossing, distracted driving, speeding, those things that we know that lead towards injury and fatal crashes.
Thank
you. That's very good. So, all right.
Chair?
Yes.
If I may, real
Briefly.
quick, in just a point of clarification from earlier in the agenda. When I arrived, there was a presentation about the 3rd Avenue bicycle lanes, and subsequent to that presentation, was there a motion made? Staff asked for, so that's just a point of clarification or a point of procedure.
No, I think before you came, we had, I can't remember exactly when you stepped in, but we had a just brief thank you to everybody who helped get smart parking implemented. I'm sorry you weren't here because you were very essential to that. So we'll thank you now. And then we just were, we all sent our comments concerning Ms. Williams. And then we, I think, approved the agenda and approved the minutes.
Okay, well, I was just going to, on that agenda, move a deferral for that to February.
To defer what?
The 3rd Avenue bike
I don't think that it wasn't, it was only a presentation. There was no action required.
Okay, so then I guess I want to ask about the status of to which meeting that was previously deferred. So if today's agenda said there was an update, I heard staff suggesting indefinite deferral. I don't concur with that. I just want for clarity for the community, for them to understand to what future meeting has that been deferred. I don't want it to be left kind of in limbo, please.
Okay. Well,
If maybe staff could just clarify then, as again, because my question was a point of clarification, what is the status of that
The status
initial
was
item?
just to withdraw and revisit after Connect Downtown study due to the conflicts and overlaps.
Well, I guess what I'm asking Mr. Oldham is, as I recall it, Chair, the previous motion was a specific number of months for deferral, Chair, and my concern is that we're approaching that, and then this wasn't on this agenda, so will this item...
Well, this item was on the agenda that was distributed to all commissioners.
Yes, sir, as an update.
Yes, as an update. So and you were here doing the majority of that presentation, so we finished that item. I'm unclear as to what, you seem right here before the end of the meeting to want us to do something. I'm unclear about what it is.
The point of clarification I'm requesting, Chair, is the previous motion on this item was a deferral of a certain number of months to a meeting certain.
Okay.
I'm asking staff to clarify that because what I'm hearing based on our presentation was that there was a desire for withdrawal, a desire for indefinite deferral. And so the community, if they were to watch this meeting and the great presentation, I appreciate the context very much. So what my concern is, Chair, is that this matter is left in limbo because there has been no motion or vote by this commission. And if the previous motion still applies, Mr. Oldham, because it was a deferral of X number of months, and we can take this up at next meeting, that's fine. That's why I'm asking a point of clarification, Chair, which is a superseding motion per Robert's rules.
Do we need a motion?
Legal counsel, will you please answer this question? Because it seemed appropriate. My point of order is that at the time we were discussing this and
well, Chair, it just kept on going.
Well, wait just a second. Let me finish, please. We had an agenda item that we discussed. You were here during that presentation because you asked questions. It would have seemed that at that time, this point of clarification was the appropriate place to bring that item up because then we moved to other items. So, legal counsel, will you please address, it appears that the council member wants a motion that either, I guess, makes this indefinite deferral item or a date specific?
No, sir, I'm not
Item.
asking for a motion. I'm asking for a point of clarification around the proceeding in previous meetings. This item was deferred to a meeting certain. This was an update on this agenda. That's fine, Chair.
Okay.
I'm just asking, where does this stand now? Because what the community will have heard, Chair, is a request for an indefinite deferral, a mention of withdrawal, and so I don't think we should just leave it hanging as we conclude the meeting.
I have not heard a request for an indefinite deferral. That's not
Mr.
what I've
Freeze
heard.
recommended it as part of his presentation, sir.
So
What I heard earlier was that they were coming back to us in March, spring, with recommendations on this item. That's what my recollection of what I heard.
So, Councilmember and Chair, we have checked. So the agenda was a 2-month deferral last, so that would actually put that to this meeting. So a deferred action. So I think a motion would be in order to actually defer this until after the Connect Downtown study is complete. And that's it. We requested we said indefinite deferral, but we requested a deferral until we actually have made that decision based on Connect Downtown.
Would you like to make a motion, please?
Well, Chair, I would move this item to our next meeting's agenda is what I would do, because I don't know if we want to discuss this at this time. I just didn't want it to be left hanging in limbo, sir.
Okay. Well, I think would appreciate that these items would be discussed at the time that we're discussing the agenda item. That seems to be the appropriate point to discuss them, and I understand your point, but that's the appropriate time.
We're
to
on
discuss it.
the agenda, and I requested a point of clarification.
Okay. So, okay. Are there any other new business items? I think next month we will be having an election for chair and vice chair. And then in the meantime, we wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And is there a motion to adjourn? I'm sorry.
Are we not going to make a motion to have the 3rd Avenue Bikeway on the December agenda?
Well,
Chair, I guess that's what I'm asking. If we don't make a motion, then nobody...
because that's what I asked, if you want to make a motion, and the sense I got was that you did not want to make a motion. So that's what we asked for specifically. So
I would move, please, Chair,
okay.
that the 3rd Avenue Bikeway be on the December agenda.
Okay, so there's a motion for that. When you previously asked, you did not make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, it'll be, okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.